On this episode of Cox Connections, looking into the future of Hampton Roads. The Hampton Roads Partnership has been bringing people together to look at a vision for the region as a region. We'll get an update on the efforts. Looking into the near future, we see hurricane season. We'll talk to local experts about preparing your business to survive a disaster if it comes. And we'll talk to Junior Achievement about preparing young people to be the next generation of business leaders. Stay tuned, Cox Connections is next. Hello and welcome to Cox Connections. I'm your host, Gary McCullum, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cox, Virginia. If you were asked to share your ideas about what the region should do to survive and prosper, what advice would you give? That was what the Hampton Roads Partnership wanted to know when it gathered hundreds of individuals and businesses together for Regional Day. Here is the group's report out on that event.
Hampton Roads Partnership's Regional Day was a big hit, but it's not over yet. Visit innovatehamptonroads.com for presentation videos, PowerPoint notes, and much more.
This Vision Hampton Roads is a roadmap for prosperity, and it focuses on expanding and diversifying the local economy and positioning Hampton Roads as a strong and competitive, internationally recognized global leader.
What I do for the president is to think about policy a little bit beyond what you normally think when you talk to folks in Washington. Traditionally, it's I got to talk to my member of Congress, we got to pass a bill, we got to lobby for money for a specific program. Those are policies for sure. But on the tech team, we've identified 3 additional policy levers that in large part do not require new money or new programming authority. We can just do them.
Innovation is more than a concept, it's an action. So visit innovatehamptonroads.com. We're serving up hot, innovative ideas.
Joining us now to talk about Innovate Hampton Roads and the efforts to get the region to work regionally is Dana Dickens, President and CEO of Hampton Roads Partnership. Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be here.
Well, that was a great event, obviously. So before we talk about that event, Hampton Roads Partnership, for those who don't know, what is it? What's the mission? What are we trying to do here?
The partnership is a group of leaders in Hampton Roads charged with making the region more competitive.
Who's involved? You mentioned
the
leaders.
people, there's all the elected officials, chief elected officials in the region. There's the business leaders. There's military folks that are on the board. Higher education, labor's represented. It's the chief elected officials, chief CEO type folks in Hampton Roads.
And so Regional Day, what was the goal? What did we learn? What was the takeaways from that event?
The region has been dependent on the military for the bulk of our economy, 45% of our economy for a long time. The purpose of Regional Day was to introduce the concept of innovation to the region and talk about some of the things that we're doing and that we can be doing to diversify our economy so that when the military spending starts to decline, and it clearly will.
We expect it will.
It clearly will. We'll have some backfill, some other things that we'll be working on to generate new jobs and opportunities.
Were there any surprises coming out of the?
You know what? It really was interesting. Often when you have a meeting like that and you ask people to do things, you don't hear much back. Well, we've had an awful lot of feedback from the public saying, we want to do this, or we are doing this, or it's been really neat to see people who have actually bought into the concept of becoming more innovative.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about Innovate Hampton Roads. What's the goal? What are we really trying to do there?
Well, innovation is an interesting topic. It's one of those things that you know what it is when you see it, but you can't define it. Mm-hmm. But this country has built itself on innovation. I liken it to the old American ingenuity. We were able to build things, grow things, the Industrial Revolution and so forth, that made us as strong as we are. And what we've seen is the rest of the world is now catching up with us. And of course, with the manufacturing going where cheap labor is, a lot of manufacturing and so forth, we got to get back to that old American ingenuity.
So what are the areas of focus then? I mean, if we're going to innovate, are there certain areas, or is it technology? Is it, I mean, what exactly?
Technology is a big piece of it, and there are clusters in the technology industry. And clusters are groups of businesses that like to get together because you have a product I need and I have a product you need. We're looking at the modeling and simulation, which is a big industry in Hampton Roads. Sensors, there's a good industry that we can build from. Bioscience, aeronautics with the NASA and so forth are some of the clusters, the technology clusters that we're looking to grow.
So coming out of Innovate, is there a call to action for businesses or leaders or individuals for that matter around what we need to be doing with regard to innovation and focusing on some of these business clusters that you mentioned?
Well, the simple call to action, Gary, is that every person in Hampton Roads can be innovative. You can figure out how to do what you do quicker, cheaper, faster. Just work on opportunities to improve what you do, to make it more efficient, to make it cheaper. The other piece of it is in a regional context, we're doing a lot of work on these clusters, and we could use all the help that we can get.
Well, that's where I was going to go next. We only have a minute or two left, but this whole issue of regionalism, I just read a recent USA Today article that talked about that's where everything's going. Everyone is looking at ways to become bigger in terms of pulling regions together to leverage resources to compete. And so what's the partnership doing in that regard?
Well, it's clear that the region is the economic unit. Used to be a city, or even back in the early turn of the century, a little village. You could get all you needed there. But today, in order to be competitive in the world economy, you got to take a lot of assets, and this region has a lot of assets. If we take the assets we have and align them so that we're competing with not only other cities and regions in this country, but around the world. If we're aligning our assets, then we're going to be a lot more competitive, and that's what it's all about.
We're clearly are out of time, but just quickly give me a passing grade, right? Give the region a passing grade in terms of our regional efforts. Are we there? Are we making progress?
We're making a lot of progress. I would say, I wouldn't give you a grade, but we've made a huge amount of progress over the last 15 years. Great.
Well, listen, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for all you're doing leading the Hampton Roads Partnership, and we're going to do all we can to make sure that these efforts around innovation and job creation, that we're there partnering with you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Great being here.
After the break, stormy weather. We'll talk to local experts about what small businesses need to do to survive hurricane seasons. Stay with us with more Cox Connections.